All right. What's up? What's up? We got episode 18 of the Collectin and Connectin podcast. Got some new faces here, but I wanted to introduce our good buddy from the CNC group, Glenn W. What's up, my man?
What's going on? How you guys doing?
Doing great, man. Doing great. Welcome to the CNC pod. As a host, glad to have you here.
King glad Brett's, to be here.
Yes, sir. King Brett's missing right now with some lost dogs on the property. Can't wait to hear that story. That's going to be fun. But we got a special guest here on the CNC pod. He's a returning guest. We actually saw him in the intro right there. Super excited about this. On the content curation team, Brandon Sowle. What's up, buddy?
What's going on, guys? Happy to be here. It feels like it's been a while since I was here, but as we spoke pre-pod, I was here in April, so it wasn't that long ago, but I'm excited to be back.
For sure. In this world, man, that feels like an eternity. A week feels like a long time. So since April, like that's forever ago.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, Damian Lillard still played for the Blazers, right? So this is a different world now.
There you go. There you go. It is a different world. We got movement around the league for sure. Lots of changes and updates since the playoffs in Top Shot and in the NBA. So just excited to hang out, talk some ball, and just kick it for a little bit.
Absolutely. Yeah. Let's do it. It's my favorite thing to do.
Yeah, I'm excited because I haven't actually interacted with Brandon all that much. I know of him. I'm a fan of his, but I haven't had a chance to really talk to him.
Very cool. Brandon's fun to talk to. Dude loves basketball like we do, G. And last time we talked, we touched into him just starting on the Top Shot team at the end of S3 before S4. That's correct, Brandon?
Yeah, about mid S3, I would say.
Mid S3.
January of that season. So basically smack dab in the middle of that season.
Very cool. And we've just seen so many changes since then. We laugh all the time, like we were just joking about how time, warps and things. The updates that have happened since we talked to you, even since April. We were in the middle of redemptions and playoffs, but the team profiles, you joked about audio creating emotion in the last podcast. We have audio on the platform. We just talked to Austin last series about that. Talk to us just about the platform. I mean, we could just ask you that and just say, get going. We could talk for 30 minutes about that. Give us some stuff about what you're excited about.
I mean, I'm excited about everything. You mentioned a handful of things right there, and it's sort of hard being just in the trenches every day to notice each milestone that we topple, and just like take the time to celebrate the win and recognize it, and then kind of talk about it afterwards. And I'm like, oh yeah, that did happen since then, and that's happened too. Wow, that's crazy. But man, the team is just like super focused right now. Like I think everyone's just in a really nice position to succeed at what they're doing and at what they're focused on. Like I'm obviously focused on the curation side of things, but we have people that are focused on the product side of things, and they're just crushing it right now. You mentioned like the profiles and the things that we're building over there, and the audio, which was totally championed by Austin and our partnerships team as well. And just the hurdles that seem maybe insurmountable at times, we're able to achieve. And that's the best feeling. And we're just going to keep going and keep trying to make better features for the users. And I'm just going to keep on trying to make the moments better and better and better and better. So I'm just really excited where we're at today and looking forward to what it sounds crazy, but I'm looking forward to what a Top Shot looks like in 5 years and 10 years. And, because sky's the limit, really.
I have a quick question. I know that there's a lot of licensing stuff going on, but is there ever going to be a point where they can get the announcers in the audio as well? Or is that just something that's so complicated?
It's pretty complicated. I'm not saying it's, it's not going to happen or anything. I wouldn't say it's going to happen in the extremely near future, because like you said, the licensing, the rights issues are the big one there. And from what I understand, each commentator, each announcer sort of holds their own rights. That's sort of part of the business. So that presents some complications, right? Because then you're having to strike deals with each one of them on an individual basis. And when you talk about the league, 30 teams. Now you're talking about two, you have a play-by-play guy and usually a color guy per team on the local broadcast, not to mention all the national broadcasts. So I think that's definitely a goal down the line, because that's super cool. If you can hear Mike Breen yell bang on a massive shot in NBA history, what's better than that, right? But
Heck yeah.
there's just some steps we have to take before we get there.
Or God forbid a double bang.
Yeah, double bang. Oh my gosh, that deserves its own historical stat, right?
For sure. Great question, Glenn.
Yeah, and really, like the way we view it too is like, of course, it'd be great to hear, the commentators sort of narrate a play, but it's kind of special feeling like you're in the arena as well. There's something about that, where you just hear that crowd roar, or to the contrary, maybe you're on the road and the crowd dies because it's a big shot by your team and they just silence the crowd. So that's some things that you can lose on a TV broadcast to a degree. Not saying, and I'm making an excuse to not have commentators, but that's just focusing on the positive of feeling like you're in the arena. I think that's a pretty cool step.
Yeah, we've been talking a lot about eliciting an emotion, and you talked last pod when we had you on that you wanted a moment to start early and end late and have a chance to breathe. And Glenn, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but S4, that's all we've seen in rare sets, legendary sets, the common ones. Like, these moments are creating emotions, because if you're looking at a Knicks moment, Glenn, like, you remember watching that because it's putting you back in that snapshot in time, to steal another one of your phrases, Brandon. But it's so cool to have all of those emotions happening when you're watching, this moment. It's really cool.
Yeah, and that's the goal. Sorry, Glenn, if you had something. That's really the goal, right? Like, Glenn, you might go to a Knicks game and you might see a play happen. And it's a huge clutch shot by, I don't know, RJ Barrett maybe hits a clutch shot and the Knicks win a big game that's on ESPN that night or something like that, right? And before Top Shot, sort of, you remember that by just remembering the play. And then maybe as time goes on, it starts to fizzle out and you start to remember it a little bit less. Like, we have that really unique ability to immortalize that play, to attach it to your emotion, to your feeling of being there for the rest of time. Like, you can always go back in there and remember, yes, I remember this play. I remember why it was so big. And that's the goal, to just continue to get better at that around the edges. Like, you can't just sort of drop a play in there and say, that's good. Like, that's where audio comes in and beefs it up. And that's where extending the head of the play. So you set it up and realize, oh, that's an after timeout play. And that's where extending the end of the play, where you see the celebration stuff, little nuances like that to a play, sort of just like kind of grabs your emotions, I feel like. And that's what we're ultimately trying to achieve.
Yeah. And it's funny, you guys, we'll probably touch on it anyway, but the Origin set is kind of, going on right now. Everyone's very excited about it. A bunch of years back, my wife got me a KP jersey and a Tim Hardaway jersey. Nice. And then they got traded like right after that. So I was able to, yeah, it says KP, right? Yeah, KP. Yeah. I got my KP jersey on. I haven't worn it in a really long time, but I just figured I'd wear it just to honor the Origin set, and I think it's a really awesome set, by the way.
That's awesome.
That jersey looks clean. Looks like it hasn't been worn that much.
It hasn't been worn. It was in a drawer. And then all of a sudden he gets traded to your sorry team.
Yeah. Pingus.
Well, I was going to say, hopefully you bought it with an American Express card so you could trade it in for free, right? But it's a special day when you're able to sort of like pull out that jersey you stuffed away because you're mad at the guy or because he was traded or whatever. Like, of course, I have a Kevin Durant jersey and a Thunder jersey, and I don't wear that thing. You can't wear that around here. But as time goes by, people start to heal a little bit, and maybe I'll whip it out in a couple of years. Who knows?
That's so funny.
You could also use it to clean the windows, if you need a rag or something. But yeah, either way.
Yeah, Brandon, half of me and Glenn's conversation and banter back and forth, being Knicks and Mavericks fans, are all the players that we've had traded between our teams. There's feels like hundreds of them.
You could do a whole set. You could do a whole Top Shot set. The New York Knicks and the Mavs, sharing players all the time.
Yeah, there's teams that are like that they just have like a sort of buddy in the league where they just kind of share a lot of players. Right now, you're seeing it with, to speak about my own team, the Thunder, like they do it with the Pistons a lot, but it makes sense because the Pistons GM falls from the Sam Presti tree. So they already have that foundational relationship, and I'm sure it's just nice to work together.
That's a good segue to talk Thunder. All three of our teams are projected to be, I guess, out of the play, not in the top 8 in the NBA. So, like, where do you see the Thunder going? What strides do you see them? I know you're going to talk Chet, but talk a little Thunder.
Man, it's hard to say. The West is just loaded, right? The West is absolutely loaded. I think you can only really bank on maybe 2 to 3 bad teams in the West. Portland is young. Who knows, the Spurs, of course, but Wembanyama could carry that team to quite a few wins, and Devin Vassell's no slouch, and Keldon Johnson's been around for a little while. Like, even the bad teams have these players that can win you games. Utah's kind of a wild card, but the Thunder are just the same team they were last year, and you add in Chet, who covers up a lot of weaknesses that the team had last year, which was rim protection and just having a big guy to rebound the ball and stretch the floor, et cetera, et cetera. It's just like, if you look at the last year's Thunder team and you say, what does this team need? And you built a prototype based on the needs, Chet Holmgren's the player that you build. Like, it sounds crazy, but it's true. Now he's a rookie. So, like, we'll see how it goes. But another year under Josh Giddey, another year under Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Lou Dort, Jalen Williams, who closed the year as maybe the best rookie in the second half of the season last year. He looks like a stud already in preseason. Sure. So it's an exciting season. I'm trying not to get my hopes up too high because I think people are starting to get a little carried away with expectations. This is still a super young team, but it's hard not to get excited when you watch them play. They play the right way. I love the coach. It's going to be a really, really fun year.
Yeah, the expectations, they go fast, don't they? You go from everybody being tempered, we're young, everything's going to be all right, and you win a couple games and everybody's just ready to go to the championship.
That's right. Just 2 years ago, I mean, there was national media calling the Thunder just like a disgrace to the league, and you're like, okay, all right, like, look where we're at now. Like, everyone would love to have the Thunder's roster and the Thunder's stash of draft picks, and really the Thunder's outlook over the next 10 years. So I'm super thrilled to be a fan of this organization. That's for sure, because it could be a lot worse.
Yeah. When do you think is the right time to cash in those picks? Because right now you have a lot of talent, and it seems like you're on the Thunder are on the way up. It's like, what's the balance there of when you pull the trigger, maybe trade 3 or 4 of those and bring in a really proven guy to definitely get you to the next level,
It's going to happen. It's just a matter of when. So it's a great question. I'm glad it's not me that has to make that decision, but I don't think now's the time because, as we said, everyone's getting a little carried away with the expectations. Like, this team has done nothing to make you say, all right, we got to go make a move if we want to reach the next level. Who's to say this team can't be the team? This roster can't be the roster to take the next level. And then maybe all you need is a role player to really patch it. So you don't want to cash in your chips for some star that might disrupt any sort of chemistry that you've been building, but you never know. Like, so I think you got to play things out a little bit and see where you're at. Now, if by Christmas this team is, the 3rd seed in the West, and you start thinking about some stuff. By the trade deadline, this team's, 4th seed in the West. Who's just like, who knows? So I don't think it's going to be this year though, because even if in that case, if they are a top, like, surprisingly a top 4 seed in the West, right, by the trade deadline, well, this team earned the right to just keep playing, I think. Yeah, I don't think it's probably not realistic to go for a championship this year, even if you are a top 4 seed in the West, just given how young everybody is. And one of your top players is a rookie, and another one of your top players is a 2nd-year player, and another one, Josh Giddey, is a 3rd-year player. Like, that just doesn't happen. Teams don't win championships with that young of a roster. So I think they just got to be patient. And if they have a great season this year, maybe next year is the time. But you got to consider Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in his contract and making him happy to be here and letting him know that you're willing to do whatever it takes to win.
Yeah, SGA, Giddey, Dort, they got some special pieces, as Glenn was just mentioning. What about up there in the Northeast, buddy? I know you're excited about Brunson. We talk about Jalen all the time, and when he came up there last year, he created a little bit of a storm, and kind of felt the same way, like things were escalating in New York. What are your thoughts about the upcoming season, G?
I think that they'll end up maybe around the 5th seed, maybe somewhere like 4th, 5th, or 6th.
Okay.
They have, a couple things break either way, maybe slightly higher, but they have the same roster basically, right? And they added DiVincenzo. I don't love that they let Toppin go without replacing him with anyone. But, we'll see what happens. He was only playing maybe like 12 minutes a game because Randall plays almost the whole game. But, what happens if Randall gets injured?
On the offensive side.
Yeah. But if Randall goes down, then what do we do? I know they're playing Jericho Sims at power forward a little bit because he's fairly mobile for a big man. So we'll see what happens. But that does worry me. I wish they picked up a viable backup power forward. But I think another year with the same group, same chemistry, the same coach, everything else, they should be able to compete in the East.
The Knicks are interesting. I think they're not too unlike the Thunder as far as like having some assets to deal with, right? But I think your point about Obi Toppin is a fair one and a valid one. But it's not something that they have to address immediately because they are healthy, right? Like if they go into the season and they're playing well, they're probably like they have some of the best continuity year over year in the entire league right now, which is. That's something to actually hang your hat on if you're a Knicks fan, because that's not necessarily how it goes usually. And it feels probably nice, right? Like another year of this team really solidifying who it is. And I think they're going to be active. They'll be active in trade talks when it comes down to it, because they're going to be good.
Yeah, and the best part is that I get to keep the jerseys going without worrying about, them ripping them out from under me and getting rugged. So
yeah, isn't Quentin Grimes number 6? Is he number 6?
I'm bad with numbers. He might.
You got to slap a Grimes on that jersey.
Yeah, I'll just cross it off with a marker.
Love it.
What about your Mavs? What about Mr. Kyrie, Mr. Glue, Mr.
That's a great question. I'm definitely excited about Luka and Kyrie. We are starting 2 rookies at the big men right now with Prosper and Lively the second. But I think we're going to try to find our team and kind of balance that playing time out a little bit. I'm obviously high on them. I believe in Luka. I believe in Kyrie. And we hear a lot in the CNC chat about how he's going to rip everybody apart. But I'm staying positive and not listening to any of that chatter.
Well, what do you think about last year then? What do you think happened? They were in around the 4th seed before they traded for Kyrie, and then they end up finishing, 9th or 10th in the West?
Yeah.
So what was the cause of that, in your opinion?
Those 2 guys didn't play very much together at all. When he got there, Luka was hurt. He played the first couple games without him. Luka came back. They played a couple together. I got to go in person and see it. And then right after that, Kyrie went out. And so we never really got any kind of fluidity, no continuation and group feelings. And so the vibes, I don't think, were there. I think we'll be able to tell a lot more at the start of this season because they've had a full offseason together, whether it's going to work or not. In the first few months, I think we'll be able to just tell on the vibes and how things are going, just based on previous spots that he's been at. But I'm excited. We'll see how it all gels together.
Grant Williams is a huge pickup.
That's a great point. And I didn't even bring that up. But yeah, defensively, we were missing some stuff, especially you mentioned last year, Kyrie and Luka. They both can score, both can distribute, and all-star talents for sure. But they could be lazy on the defensive end occasionally. And so to have somebody that's going to be able to lock down and guard the best player, as well as 2 athletic guys that are going to play big that hopefully can guard the rim a little bit and help them defensively. That's a great point, Brandon.
Yeah, and just, being able to hang in the corner too for Grant Williams and have an option for Kyrie and Luka as they do their thing on offense. Like Grant Williams can hit that shot, right? Like and Maxi Kleber back, hopefully healthy. I think helps a ton. And Josh Green, does he take a step forward? That's huge for you guys, right? He had a nice year last year. I think he's a really solid player. He's had steady progression year over year over year. And I think the acquisition of Steph Curry, getting him back on this roster, Seth Curry, sorry, not Steph Curry.
That would be crazy, but yeah,
that would be a little different. But Seth Curry, yeah, I mean that's a nice piece too, right? I mean the guy can shoot the ball, and that's huge when you have guys that can drive like Luka and Kyrie.
For sure, they're going to create a bunch of attention. So if you got somebody that can knock down in the corner, that's definitely a big value add for sure. Yeah, Josh Green is a great point. Him and Jaden Hardy both coming off pretty good years for them and stepping up to see how much more they can take of the limelight. this offseason, you could tell that several teams maybe tried to come in there and take them away, and Dallas seemed to guard them with all the trades and things they were making. So I think they think pretty highly of them as well.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah.
And just adding some depth to that roster with Derek Jones Jr. even, right? Like, and drafting a Derek Lively. I like what they did this offseason. The big question with Dallas is, does Luka and Kyrie work? Does it work as good as it should with two guys of that caliber? They do a lot of the same things, so it's going to be an interesting test.
Yep.
Yeah. I wanted to ask Brandon real quick about OKC. One question. So they have a lot of young talent on the roster. You know, their whole team they're very young, right? They don't have too many older guys.
Yep.
And you have people like Trey Mann and Dieng. And I feel like those guys, like let's say they were on a different team and they had a lot more opportunity, you feel like maybe they have talent and they would be flourishing more than maybe they are. Does that ever come into your head at all? Like there's so much young talent that you can't play everyone?
Yeah, for sure, but it's a good problem to have, right? Like,
Definitely.
I think it protects you from injuries, and I think if you're cultivating an environment that these guys want to be in as well, you're not like, they're willing to sacrifice some minutes for their own development and for their own just well-being. Now Trey Mann's the interesting one here. Like, I think that unless you are a Thunder fan or you pay super close attention to the Thunder, you might not really have a great feel on Trey Mann and his game or how he fits on this roster or in this future. I think he's the big question mark here. I like Trey Mann. He's super skilled. He's got one of the best step backs, honestly, in the entire league. He just creates separation.
Take it easy.
Unlike many guards, but that's kind of his thing, right? And there's not a huge place for that on this roster. You know, that you can't really, he's a scorer, and you can't really take the ball from some of your best players on this team because it's not a better shot. It's not a better shot than going to Shea. It's not a better shot than letting Giddey drive. It's not a better shot than letting J-Dub do his thing. So I think he's the one guy that I look at that I think could benefit from a different situation, Trey Mann. And I wouldn't be surprised to see that even before the season starts. The Thunder have to make 3 roster cuts before they finalize the roster going into the season. And I think Trey Mann's a candidate to be one of those guys. And I think the good thing about the Thunder organization is they're willing to do right by their players. You know, they're not going to hold out and make sure they get a first-round pick for Trey Mann. If all they can get is a second-round pick and it gives him a better opportunity to go further his career, I think they'll trade him. I think they'll make that trade. Jang, on the other hand, is raw. He's more raw. He's looked good in preseason, looked great in summer league. He was super raw last year, and I think he's going to hang around. I think that they're treating him perfectly. They're not overplaying him, but they're giving him just enough opportunity to let him develop. And honestly, I think he grew a couple inches this summer too. So I'm really excited to see him hit the court this year.
What if he's Giannis just sitting there on the bench?
I think they would know. I mean, these guys practice too, right? Like, surely they would know. But let's hope that's the case because that would be amazing.
Well, speaking of Giannis, before we move on, we're talking basketball. Let's pick the season's starting when this comes out. Who's going to win the East?
Oh my goodness.
Talking Giannis there as Milwaukee, Boston. Who's gonna take it down?
If I had to pick, I think I go Boston.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a good pick too. They just have so much defense now with Drew Holiday, and I think they already had enough offense the way it was.
And Kristaps, show him the 6, showing up for the Celtics now.
Yeah.
I hope he has a healthy season. I love that they got Drew Holiday. That's a great defensive ad. Celtics should have a good year.
Yeah, I mean, they're stacked up top, right? And I even think that people are underrating some of the around the edges pickups that they made this year with O'Shea Brissett and let me just take a look. Lamar Stevens, Peyton Pritchard getting more opportunity. The kid can play,
right?
You know, and they extended him, and I imagine that he agreed to that extension because he's going to get to play finally, and he's just been waiting to play for that roster.
Shout out to our boy, Mr. Elvish Piper, who talks about Peyton Pritchard every day. We got so many Celtics fans.
Yeah, Delano Banton they even picked up, who has some experience with the Raptors, right? Wenyen Gabriel, Svi Mikhailuk, who I'm not sure that he gets a lot of time, but they do have some depth pieces that will get some opportunity. And that top 6 is just on another level. Now, the Bucks are scary because Dame and Lillard, I mean, Dame and Giannis, man, that's one of the best duos of all time on paper, right? Like
unreal.
That's just
what an addition.
could two superstars complement one another any better than that on paper? So it's going to be interesting watching those two. That if they are healthy, they win 55 games by themselves, no problem, I think. But if Giannis goes down, can Dame win with the rest of that roster? If Dame goes down, how much do they suffer? Like, they need to stay healthy, I think, to win the East in the regular season. But playoffs, it's gonna be fun.
So officially, to pin you down here, you're saying Celtics to win the East?
Celtics, I would say to win the East. If we're talking regular season, I would go Celtics, and probably even if we're saying who goes to the NBA Finals, if I had to guess right now, I would say the Celtics.
Glenn?
Look, I'm gonna say Knicks just because that's my team.
There he is.
But realistically, Drew Holiday is such a great player. For anyone who knows basketball and really has played basketball and understands the ins and outs, he's got to be one of your favorite players, regardless of what team he's on, right? He just plays defense. He gets steals. He assists. He makes shots when he needs to. Just having him on the team, the experience, he won. Obviously, he has a ring, from 3 years ago or so. He had some key plays there. I remember there was a montage of him just ripping the ball away from people that year. Like, his defense was otherworldly that postseason. So even though Marcus Smart was, you could say, somewhat of a similar player, I think Drew Holiday is a definitive upgrade, and he's just, you can't even quantify what he's going to bring to the team.
Totally agree. And you're getting an upgrade offensively with Drew Holiday from Marcus Smart. He can run your offense if he needs to. He can play up the ball if he needs to. He's just a confident player at this point. He had one of his best seasons of his career last year. So you wonder, he's in his 30s, mid 30s at this point. You wonder if he's taking a step back defensively a little bit, but it doesn't mean that he's not still an outstanding defensive player. He is.
And he wasn't ever a high flyer, really. So I don't, you see like the diminishing of some players' skills when they're very athletic. They have to learn to play another way. I don't think that's necessarily the case with him. I think he plays with a medium pace, and he can continue to do so.
Yeah, he's a pro.
Yeah, I hate to agree with both of you. You stole the words out of my mouth about Marcus Smart. I was really worried about that. I actually think very highly of him. I coached against him when he was at Flower Mound in Texas, playing high school basketball. Watched him very closely at Oklahoma State, and I think he's just been such a great player in the pros. I think he does all the dirty work, all the small things, diving on the floor, steals, guarding people. He'll go get a 50-50 ball on you in a heartbeat. He's really improved his three-point shooting, even though it's not super. But I was really worried for them when they lost that spot. But I think Jay Rue is a upgrade at that position. I think they're going to be really good. I take the Celtics in the East as well.
Yeah.
Who you guys got in the West?
Come on, Brandon. You got to be a homer here.
I can't do it. Man, it's a tough one. The West is a bloodbath. It's just so bloodbath. I don't know. I think it's a matter of 4 teams who stays the healthiest. And I want to be crazy, and I want to say the Lakers. I love what they did this offseason, but it seems crazy to, assume AD plays enough games, LeBron plays enough games to get those amount of wins. But they got the depth. They got the improvement across the board. They got some outstanding offseason pickups.
Every time I'm worried about their depth, then they add somebody, and I'm like, man, that really improves their bench.
Yeah,
Christian Wood from us, which we weren't really in a hurry to sign him at that number, but they had it.
Yeah, I love their roster. They're not going to have to lean on their superstars like they have the last few years. Even D'Lo feeling comfortable with a new contract, even though some people speculate that contract is just so they can trade him later. But he probably feels pretty secure making $18 million a year. Austin Reeves obviously is Austin Reeves, and he's getting a lot of shine. He's a really nice player. Christian Wood, I think I didn't love that signing because I wouldn't do it if I were that team, but they felt confident enough to do it. And I think it's a low risk. If you got to cut him loose because he's not fitting in, you cut him loose, no harm.
But the pressure on Dallas that he's the number 3 guy, he's not the number 3 guy there. Like, he's going to have a lot less pressure on him. Yeah.
I mean, he might play 12 minutes a game, truly. Or he might play 25. If he's the best version of Christian Wood, he really might. The thing is, you don't know what you're going to get.
Right.
But Jackson Hayes on that squad, and just great additions in the offseason. So, man, I don't know. I'm going to reluctantly pick the Lakers.
LA, wild.
Yeah.
Glenn?
I don't see how Denver goes down from what they just did. All their key people are in an age range where they're either like entering their prime or in their prime. There's no, you see what I'm saying? There's no one that I'm
It
really
seems
worried about.
repeatable.
And they're just such a well-oiled machine. Even though they lost Brown, it doesn't mean you can't have someone else come in for 20 minutes and score and things of that nature. So I don't know. I don't see anyone toppling Denver. They're just, if they're on cruise control and they have motivation, I don't see why they can't do it again. The problem with the Lakers, I think at some point, LeBron's going to deal with a lot more injuries at his age. It's just inevitable. If he can stay healthy, maybe they can compete. But Denver just has so much chemistry, and that pick and roll, is ridiculous. So
I love it. I definitely like Denver. I think bringing the Jokic is tough to argue with. Dude's a stud. He could win the MVP every year. He just dominates. Sees the floor really well. He's fun to watch, in my opinion. I know there's others. The coaching, you mentioned losing Bruce Brown, but when you win a championship, those type of guys will sign and jump over there in a heartbeat to come chase a ring and be with you. So I think you can, like you're saying, you can find that player again.
Yeah, I think that player this year is going to have to be Christian Brown. I mean, I think that he steps into that role a little bit, but I do worry about the loss of Bruce Brown. I mean, he was in the closing lineups last year on their way to winning the championship. That is a unique player. There's not a lot of Bruce Browns out there. He's such a utilitarian, just master at his role, right? And I think now you have Reggie Jackson stepping in there and he's going to have to play a bigger role. Obviously, we just had Christian Brown and Justin Holiday. I think they're going to lean on a lot, but they look like they crushed it in the draft. And that seems to be how they've been going the past couple of years. It's hard to bet against Denver for sure.
I got to pick the Mavericks to finish high. I think they're going to do really well. I love them in the West, but like you're saying, it's going to be a bloodbath. There's so many good teams. Phoenix,
yeah.
it could be
That's
their
true.
year. You never know. I always love cheering against them, and we have such a good rivalry with them. But they have some talent for sure. Denver, you mentioned the Lakers, and then I've heard Golden State be picked a bunch.
Yep.
So could be anybody.
Yeah, those two teams in particular, Phoenix and Golden State, wouldn't shock anybody, right? Because the offensive firepower that both those teams have, like you can just win regular season games like that. Chris Paul coming in there and orchestrating that offense for 25 minutes a night, and Steph Curry running around like a madman like he does. And he's never had a player, maybe besides Draymond, that can get him the ball like Chris Paul's going to get him the ball around those curl screens and everything like that. It's going to be deadly. Now, how does it look on the defensive end? Yeah, that's the big thing, right?
Like you have Chris Paul and Steph running around. I don't see how they're going to stop the guards on the other side at all.
That'll be the big question. But yeah, we'll see how that goes. And Draymond's obviously aging. He's not the defender that he once was, although he's still a great defender. Kevon Looney.
He's a good podcaster, though.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, that's the big question. And same with Phoenix too, right? When you get obsessed with offense, it's like, are you going to be able to guard? But Phoenix is going to score. That's for damn sure.
You've touched, and we've touched a little bit on S4 and a lot of changes, a lot of great updates and improvements. We've seen an incredible summer. Glenn mentioned the Origin set and Run It Back just dropped. And we were able to talk a little bit to Austin on the content curation team about what all has been happening. You mentioned Wemby earlier. We're about to start into S5. We're about to wrap up S4. Just talk about where your head's at, what you're excited about.
Oh, man, I'm just sort of transitioning out of this Run It Back stuff. My part's pretty much done on the Run It Back stuff, and you guys will get to find out the end of it on the other side. So you're not too far away from that. So really, as I transition into thinking about this upcoming season, I'm super pumped about the rookies. I mean, this is the most stacked rookie class that we've had in Top Shot era, right? Like when you talk about Wemby and Scoot and Chet. Luckily, we're getting blessed with Chet like a year later. Brandon Miller, who some people are sleeping on, the Thompson twins, like it is stacked. So I'm really excited about the rookies and our plan with the rookies heading into next season. And getting a glimpse, fresh studs, getting a glimpse at these guys on their new teams, the Dame Lillards, the Chris Pauls, the Bradley Beals. Like we got some big names on new teams, and that's always a really fun kickoff to the season. And that's like, it's really fun having these Top Shot traditions start to really enforce themselves and be like this thing that we can look forward to every single year. Because, you know, it's basketball. We all love basketball, and we all love like sort of watching a game and then coming to Top Shot a couple weeks later, and then you see that play or that performance that you saw, and you're like, oh, it's on Top Shot now. That's awesome. But that's expected. But now we have like these 3-star rookies that we get, and fresh threads, players on new teams in their first game. So that's what I'm really excited about right now, is just sort of those first couple weeks.
Yeah, we were fired up, Glenn, when the rookie debut set came out in S4. And we were able to see those rookies outside of the base set and all in one set together.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the star-studded class that's coming up, the new draft class, man. It's going to be really exciting to see that come out in S5 and new traditions, as you mentioned.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that just seeing Wembanyama's name on a cube with a picture, it's just going to be fun, man. It's going to be fun. Like the hype that we've been hearing about Victor Wembanyama for the past couple of years, and now it's happening. He's coming to the league and he's coming to Top Shot. That's super fun.
Yeah, Brandon, can you make a guarantee that we'll get an Allen Houston and a Spreewell moment at some point? Pull some strings.
I can't guarantee it, but I would bet on it.
You're talking to the right guy if you're asking. I like it.
Yeah. I would bet on it for sure. I need to look into some things. You know, it's got to make sure it fits into what we're doing and all that, because obviously those guys are in a very specific era, and if we go to that era, like some of the names that are involved there, you know, might present some problems, and we don't want to go to an era that like there's obvious massive holes.
Right.
Those are two names. I loved watching Allen Houston and Latrell Sprewell growing up. Allen Houston in particular, just money from the mid range, just getting his shot wherever he wanted. So I would love to have those moments on Top Shot for sure.
Yeah, Houston was my guy, you know, after a while watching the Knicks. I started watching around like 93. So 93, 94, when they were having those deep playoff runs, I got real into it.
99 too, right? Allen Houston was probably their best player in 99, huh?
Yeah, he was. He was the leader of the team at that point. Ewing was kind of old.
Yep.
And you had the same playoff series, same season. You had the Houston shot against Miami, and then LJ's 4-point play against Indiana the same season.
Love it. I love it.
That was insane.
The glory days for Knicks fans.
Yeah, it's been a few years. Been a couple.
Oh, it's okay. That's sports for you, though, huh? It's mostly, I always make this joke, sports is just mostly pain. Unfortunately, it's just mostly misery and pain, but those moments you get of joy are unmatched.
That's just another perfect example of what we started the podcast talking about, that snapshot in time. You know, you guys were thinking back to that era and thinking about those plays and those moments and eliciting an emotion just sitting here talking about it. It's really, really cool.
Yeah, totally.
So before I let you go, I do want to joke a little bit about our buddy Austin Kent, because there was jokes going around on Twitter and I was really enjoying it. He dropped the podcast with Badge County, and then we had him on both shows, on the CNC podcast and then Moment by Moment. And like, I don't know, 5 out of 8 days, he's getting posts with his picture popping up. And Brandon finally goes, "What is this guy doing? Is he on a book tour?" Like,
yeah, he's everywhere. I was like, "What's happening?" He's really promoting himself here.
Yeah. Oh man, but the Larry Bird interview, just before we let you go, that is so cool. You guys are going to an era like we're just talking about, specifically even interviewing the person who's in that era, in the moment, and adding that to the moment. I mean, y'all couldn't have done that more perfect. It's brought people to the platform. People outside of the ecosystem are watching the YouTube interview that just came out. Really good stuff, man. I loved everything about the Larry Bird drop.
Well, thank you. I love it too. I had very little to do with it, to be quite honest with you. That was all driven by Austin, who just absolutely crushed it. My role in that was just to basically always reassure him that he was on the right path. Like, you know, he'd bounce an idea off me and be like, "Yeah, that sounds great. Do that. Definitely do that." You know, so like I'm holding down the fort over here, and he was really championing that Larry Bird stuff. And yeah, he absolutely crushed it. I posted a tweet, I think 2 days ago, and I just said Austin had 30 minutes with Larry Bird, like 30 minutes. And that's what he got out of it. And that's really impressive. And the crew that was there filming and recording the audio. They did an outstanding job as well. It looks beautiful.
For sure.
And huge shout out to Larry Bird. I mean, just bringing his A game to that
Yep.
interview, which I did not expect, you know, talking to Austin and helping him sort of prepare for that interview. I know that he was preparing for a concise Larry Bird and how to get him comfortable and thinking outside the box with his questions and not asking him the standard old, you know, questions that he's answered a gazillion times that of course he's going to be concise about. And of course he's not going to give any time of the day because he's answered them so many times and they're boring to him. Austin did a great job of making these questions entertaining and sort of doing his research. I mean, he read book after book. I'm sure he talked about it with you guys, like just preparing for that moment. And it really paid off.
He did. Yeah. He said he read 4 biographies to talk to Larry. And then he told me after I told him we were going to talk to you that he's going to give us 4 biographies to research you for this interview. So
I don't know. That'd be the most boring biography of all time. Although it would be interesting.
You got any thoughts, Glenn, to wrap up, bud?
Just happy that we have people like Austin and Brandon doing their thing. I think Top Shot's in good hands. And I'm really excited to see what's going to come up on the horizon and just keep doing your thing. And I think the fact that you offered so much context before and after the key moment, starting in, I guess, S4, I think that's a huge step. You know, you look at some of the older moments, or they're very quick and it's repeating a lot, which, you know, it is what it is. It's history. But I think you guys nailed it even more so than the other seasons in S4. And I think you have the formula for what looks awesome and what really captivates.
We'll continue pushing the boundary and coming up with new concepts. And who's to know when the NBA adds new camera angles too in arenas too that we'll be able to use, and that'll be fun. And huge shout out to our partners with the league that have really learned what we like and are adapting and willing to adapt. And also a huge shout out to Noam, who used to be with us for my first year or so. And then Dave, aka Time Lord, who was with us after that. You know, they did a great job of helping establish this formula, for lack of a better word. I don't think that's the right word, because we really do try to give each moment its own shine and say, what's best for this moment? How do we best make this moment what it should be and connect to the collector? But in the end, you know, we have a nice foundational formula, and they did a great job of establishing that. So a huge credit to them. And I'm more so just kind of taking that baton and running with it, and just proud to be a part of helping that develop and going forward. It's going to be an exciting season, and excited what we accomplished this year.
Man, couldn't agree more with both of you. We get jokes a lot because we're always saying Series 4 is fire, and we're pushing the current series like we're trying to push our bags or something. But really, we're seeing a monster difference in series to series what happened in S4. Like the things we've brought up the entire episode, the moments are fire. We're really enjoying the steps that we took and can't wait to see what the future is. You mentioned earlier what year 10 looks like, 5 years down the road, things like that. I can't wait. I'm super excited. Thank you for being here, buddy.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Keep watching the moments. Keep fighting the good fight. Appreciate you guys as always.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you guys. Thank you, Glenn. Thank you, Brandon. Thank you guys for watching episode 18 of Collectin and Connectin. See y'all next time.
Take care.